Hey, this is Pastor James of pastoralmarketing.com, and I'm so excited. Hey, listen, I want you to remember that this is real people, real life, and real results. I'm excited today because as a response to your response to my survey and to the questions that I handed out in Empowerment Night, we have a real professional. He's actually my personal business coach, Mr. Steve Olsher. But before we get into that, I just want to remind you that I need everybody to respond as quickly as they can to the survey. We did get a great response. I know some of you out there kind of holding on to your questions, but I want you to remember the drawing be the 1st of June. So make sure that you do that. I want to remind you of the theme of Be Real. Remember, we're serving people of faith and personal development. So keep everything real. And to that end, I want to introduce to you Mr. Steve Olsher. Now, we had some comments about some of the marketers that are out there, and I think it might have been Jamie that came up with the phrase "farketers," fake marketers. And I feel you. I feel you because I understand. You're getting bombarded in your emails with guys in front of big houses. With cars, we're not sure if they're even their cars, and I understand, right? We know that there's no such thing sort of as a get rich quick. Everything happens with diligence and hard work, and so it's with that framework in mind that I want to introduce to you Mr. Steve Olsher. Steve, why don't you greet our subscribers and our viewers and tell them a little bit about, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit about your history and how you arrived at being America's reinvention expert.
Yeah, well, James, thanks very much for having me on. I really do appreciate it. And so my story is pretty much an entrepreneur from the time I could pick up a rake and start moving some leaves around and shoveling snow, and slowly moved up in my career to bussing tables, waiting tables, and hell, even selling speakers out of the back of a van. Whatever it took. I was a farketer at that point. No doubt about that. That's totally going on the radar now, man. You gotta thank Jamie or whoever that was, because farketer is that's watch. That'll end up being a subject line on a future email, man. we'll give Jamie full credit on that.
All right, you're welcome.
Man, it's been an interesting journey, really. I mean, you live, you learn, you keep rolling, and got involved in the music industry. I owned my own nightclub when I was quite young, and moved on to catalogs and .coms and real estate and pretty much everything I could try to do to make $1 out of 15 cents, right? If you go back to some of the old lyrics there.
Yeah.
But man, it's been an interesting trek. And 5 years ago, I really had my own personal wake-up call where I was with my stepfather, who was very much a father to me, and raised me since I was 10. And he was really sick on his deathbed, and just literally couldn't speak anymore, but I was holding his hand and had a vision of actually my funeral, not his funeral, but my funeral, and I could hear the words being spoken graveside, which were, "Here lies Steve Olsher. He dedicated his life to chasing the almighty dollar." And that's all that was said. And, it really hit me pretty hard because my stepfather was really imploring to me at that point that I was at that fork in the road, what I now call a yay-no moment, a yes-no moment. And I could keep going down the path that would provide benefit to me and those closest to me, but really no one else. Or I could really try to hone in on who I inherently am and tap into my natural gifts and start creating a life and legacy that would have impact on not only those who share this lifetime with me, but also those of lifetimes to come. And so I had no idea really what that meant. I was involved deeply in real estate at that point, still had a .com going, and I just knew that chasing that dollar wasn't leading me to a point, a destination, if you will, that was fulfilling for me on anything other than a monetary level. And so like I said, I really didn't know where to go, what to do, but I started by putting pen to paper to share some of the tips and tools and strategies and shortcuts that had worked well for me in the hope of helping others. And that then turned into my first book, which originally was named Break the Pattern, but we changed that to Journey to You, a step-by-step guide to becoming who you were born to be. And I really did find that I have an innate, inherent gift. It's within my DNA. It's within the blueprint to help others become very clear on what they're compelled to do. And so that intuitive gift was always there. I had just buried it for decades, and it was really when I began opening myself up to the possibility that there's something more for me out there, and that I could in fact impact others' lives with a heck of a lot more than just, hey, here's a place to live, and and send me your rent check. That's when everything started taking on a much different meaning. And since then I've gone on to do a number of things around this work, and ultimately the phrase that I've now coined, and what you're very familiar with, is the question that everyone has to answer, which is, what is your what? What is that one thing that your soul is really compelled to do? And once you have your what, you then need the how. How do you share that gift with the world? How do you monetize that gift? And that's what has led me then to leverage my entrepreneurial background and my internet experience, because I've actually been online since 1993. So for 20 years now, I've been online. And that's when we started Internet Profits, which is PROPHETS. So I wrote that book, Internet Profits, The World's Leading Experts Reveal How to Profit Online. And then that led to Internet Profits Live and some other ways of sharing the message as well. But it wasn't really until that wake-up call happened and hit that my life really began to take on a much different shape and form.
No, that's very, very powerful. And of course, the way you spell profits, that really resonates with most of the people in our community. Well, that's phenomenal. That's a phenomenal story. But this really is about the subscribers and people in the community. So with your permission, I'm going to go right to some of the questions.
Sure.
We'll try to get through as many of them as we can. Well, the first question has to do with, and I'm sure you can relate to this. It says there's so much advice about how to make money online. What should I trust, and what should I do first? So I think it's about not being confused.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, look, number one, the beautiful thing about where the internet is now is that technology is no longer the obstacle. You can create sites for free. You can be up and running tomorrow. You can become a video star. You can do social media. I mean, you can do all that stuff if you've got the right content. But the problem is that most people don't know what that content is and what it should be. And so the very first thing that you have to do is you have to be able to answer that question, is what is your what? What is that one thing that your soul is compelled to do? And once you have that question answered, then and only then can you begin creating content around that area of focus. And so that requires you to be very clear on, number one, what your gifts are, number two, the vehicle that you're going to use to share those gifts with the world, and then number three, who you're most compelled to serve. And so some people find it easier to start with maybe who you're most compelled to serve, and then back into the vehicle they're going to use, and then the gifts that they have, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter the order. But ultimately, when it comes to the internet, that's the first thing that you have to do. I mean, forget about, do you start with a website? Do you start with a blog? Do you start with a podcast? Do you start with social media? Do you start with a membership site? I mean, that all that stuff is irrelevant. I mean, that is the bottom line, because until you understand who you are, what it is that you're inherently compelled to do, and then who your target market is, who those people are that you're most compelled to serve, you're just kind of, shooting at bats in the dark. I mean, that's you're going to be missing them most of the time. So that's what I would suggest you do.
Okay, that's very powerful. If we could just kind of stay right here just for a second, because there's this presupposes that although it might be about money, ultimately it's about something much bigger than that. I mean, you're talking about not only is there a little bit of homework that needs to be done, uh, but that ultimately what drives you is what you're called to do. So really, this is about a calling. I mean, this really resonates. A lot of people of faith that we dialogue with, some of them are actually pastors, and the word pastor comes from a word, vocation, vocal, meaning calling. And so it's not unlike that. That's very powerful. It's just a point that I want to kind of drive home here to see the similarity and the fact that you are literally answering and walking in a calling, and you're able to do that and get some results. Part of the frustration, Steve, is that we have people who are walking in their calling, and some of them are very comfortable with it. They've met a challenge, but it hasn't really yielded results monetarily or otherwise. And so to be on video with someone that's actually allowed those two things to meet with the hard work is a very great opportunity. So I don't think we're as far as we think we are from what you're teaching here. It's just I like to point out points of congruency. So that's very powerful. So understanding with your what is. So some of us are walking in our what, but we have to put the other pieces together.
Yeah, and let me
The how.
and let me just say, and this is something that moves well beyond our topic of conversation here.
It's okay. Yeah.
But number one, the fact of the matter, at least in my way of thinking, is that doing good and doing well do not have to be mutually exclusive. I mean, you should be paid extraordinarily well for what it is that you are naturally compelled to do. I mean, when you look at ball players who get millions of dollars for hitting a ball with a stick, I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't be paid extraordinarily well for what it is that you were naturally born to do and what your natural gifts are. And number two, you also have to look at your relationship with money, because so many of us have been brought up to believe that money is in fact the root of all evil, when in fact it's the love of money that is the root of all evil.
That's good.
And
That's
so, the reality is that you have to take a look at your relationship to money, and are you a magnet for it? And do you believe that you deserve it? And do you apologize if you earn it, right? I mean, those are
right.
the questions that you have to ask yourself. And so a lot of people say that they want certain things, but then they reach a certain threshold, and then they sabotage everything that they've worked so hard to get because of that mental game that they play, where they don't feel they're deserving of breaking through that. I mean, for some people, it's a very real ceiling that they've put in place.
Wow. Well, that is absolutely powerful. You're right. I'm compelled to go deeper into that because it's so powerful. But perhaps we can visit that at another time.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is phenomenal. All right. Well, this is supposed to be about my audience. So number two, let's go to the second question. It says, I have a website, and it's just sitting there. How do I get results with my website? I think ultimately this question is the purpose of the website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, really, and so the days of Kevin Costner and building it and they will come. I mean, obviously that that doesn't work, right? So
Okay.
reality is that there will be more than 1 million websites put up today. And
Wow.
I mean, you're talking about million, and that includes everything from a squeeze page to a full-on sales page to a full-blown website. Excuse me. So in other words, it's really, really hard now just to put something up and expect to be found. So
Okay.
it's not. Look, reality is that not to beat the horse here, but you got to make sure that your message is congruent with who you are, right? And your message is polarizing. I mean, you've got to get people interested and engaged with what it is that you're putting out there. And this takes time. I mean, this is not something that's going to happen in short order. You have to work at it, and you have to continually post content. And what most people do is they put something up and they work really hard at it, and then they kind of leave it. And so if you don't water a plant, you don't put that plant in sunlight, I mean, it's gonna die. I mean, right? You gotta trim that plant. You gotta make sure it's healthy. You gotta feed it. Well, your website's the same thing. You can't have the same site for months on end and expect anything good to happen. If you look at all the sites out there that drive significant traffic, they are continually changing, or they have one specific message that resonates with different people continually, but the content always brings them in and always gets them engaged in what you're doing. So one of two things then has to happen is you either have to continually refresh the content and get engagement, or it has to be so compelling that you bring new people into the fold on a consistent basis, because what you have is so good that they then spread the word and bring new people into the fold as well.
Okay. Can you say a little more for those that may not be as familiar with the term traffic? We don't have to teach on traffic, but can you just explain a little bit about what you mean when you say drive traffic?
Just the number of visitors to your site. So traffic is just the number of people who come to your site, and that can be obtained in numerous ways. Organic traffic is where people simply find you. Paid traffic is where you pay, like through Google or Facebook or anything of that nature, to drive traffic in any sort of way, drive people to your site. And then, of course, you have viral traffic, which is where people share what it is that you are doing with others, and that's how you find new people to come in and learn more about what you're doing.